Back in the 1980s, for those of us old enough to remember, which probably only includes me in this group of three, First Lady Nancy Reagan had the whole solution to drug addiction. And she just said, all you have to do is just say no.
I remember that campaign.
I remember that too.
Do you?
Yeah.
Worked really well, didn't it?
It did.
Because now we have no addiction, no problems in our society. and it just, at the time, people bought into it because people don't understand addiction and how just saying no is something we've all tried to do in dealing with our addiction.
Right.
I mean, mine was drinking, yours was drugs, yours was drinking. Mm-hmm. And how many nights did you say, okay, this is the last drink and I'm going to say no tomorrow?
Like every time.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's what this podcast is all about, addiction and recovery. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm your host, Randall Carlisle. My co-host is Nicole Slack, and Christina Lucero is our guest today. And we've all said no, and it didn't work. Sorry, Nancy. She's passed away, obviously, but
we tried.
Well, and what I'd like people to know who don't understand addiction is none of us like the fact that we're addicted to a substance, do we?
No.
You know. And Christina, we were talking before the podcast started, and you've been through a bunch of treatment programs.
Yeah.
You started as an adolescent.
As an adolescent, yes.
So
I started very young using drugs.
What age?
At 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Using
marijuana first. And then I knew that my dad had smoked marijuana and my mom, and they had drank a lot. So I would sneak out and go in at night and go and smoke marijuana and drink with friends. And then eventually my dad let me smoke marijuana with him. And he wanted me not in the streets. And then I was introduced to cocaine. And that's where I kind of like went downhill and stopped going to school, stopped studying, becoming violent.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't seem like a violent person.
That's what a lot of people say, but I have a lot of violent, and I grew up in some domestic violence also. So that's the way that I would release my emotions towards my family.
Okay.
And because of the violence, that's why I would be put into detention. And I wanted just to rebel against everything. And eventually my mom and dad, they would try and get me the best care that they could. The judge wanted to give me the best care that I had. One judge, and her name was Judge Hornack. And she's really known around here. And she was really strict on me. And she wanted me in a treatment program. So I went to first Odyssey House Adolescents. And it just didn't hit at that time that I needed to change my life. And then I went to Lifeline after that. After I got out of Odyssey, I went to Lifeline because my mom found this program. And it's kind of weird because, your mom and dad are still using drugs at home and you're in a program trying to get clean. And then when you come out clean, you go right back into the same environment. It doesn't work like that.
It's sort of weird. It's a mixed message to say, you need to get clean, but I'm not going to be clean.
Do as we say, not as we do. That's what they would tell me. And so I would get out and just go right back into what I was doing. And I'd give up. Because they're in Lifeline, I didn't want to change. I did. And
how old were you then?
I was 15. And I wanted to change in Lifeline. So I told that Lifeline that my mom and dad used drugs, and my mom and dad came, and we talked about it. And after that, they stopped coming to my counseling sessions.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to be called out.
No, they didn't want to be called out. And so that made me feel even worse. I think actually I was 17 when I was in Lifeline, because I signed out of Lifeline myself when I turned 18.
At that point, did you want to be clean, or was it
I wanted to be clean. My mom and dad had told me things are going to change in the house when I got home. And then I turned 18 on December 20th, and I left around December 22nd. I signed myself out, and I went home. And on New Year's, my mom and dad were drinking and doing drugs. And they were doing cocaine. And I kind of like had an episode. And I started crying, and I started yelling at them, and I told them they didn't change. And then me and my dad got into a physical fight. And I went back into detention because of that. And the judge said because I had turned 18 and the charges weren't so bad that he's just going to terminate me, but he didn't want to. The attorney general wanted to terminate me from the system. And he's all like, well, then we're just going to let this one go into the wind, the judge said. And after that, I kind of like spiraled out into drugs, did what I wanted. Eventually had my daughter, Isabella. And then when I had her, I wanted to do better. And I started going to school, but I was still actively using every once in a while. I was using methamphetamines and marijuana. And then I had my other daughter, Gabriella, and my mom and dad helped me take care of them. And I just stressed out because sometimes my mom and dad would fight, and they would fight in front of them, and I just didn't see a way of getting out. And I was still actively using. And eventually DCFS got involved, and my kids were taken. And I spiraled out of control after that. I didn't do anything. Like, I wanted to rebel against the system. It was all their fault. I had no support. And then I didn't get them back. I ended up getting a disarming an officer charge because my mom and dad had called the cops on me for trying to get in the back door. And this is around 22 years old. And I ended up going to jail, and the DCFS would not give me my kids back because I was in jail, so I couldn't actively work towards that. And I just, for the next, say, 4 years, I started in and out of drugs, in and out of jail, in and out of jail. It was like a revolving door. And I had lost myself completely. Like, I had no purpose except for to get out and want to use and be in a toxic relationship with the guy that I met. And eventually, I got pregnant again with Villarreal. And because I had already had kids taken away, they took her away when I had her. And because I had lost my kids, it's all my fault. So my parents and everything, they blamed it all on me, right? So with Villarreal, I went to the House of Hope, and I did good. And I got her back. And I moved into trans. And her father, transitional housing with Odyssey House, after I graduated House of Hope. And I did parenting. People would come in, like a parent would come in, and she would teach me how to be a parent at home. And I was working, and I was taking care of her. And then close to, I don't know, when she was about to turn 1, her dad had gotten in a bike accident, and he had broken his back. And I got a call from his dad at work saying that he had been in an accident, and then I needed to go to the hospital to see what was wrong. And because his dad lives in California. So I go, and he has to have surgery on his back because he had crushed his spinal cord. But he would be able to walk. And then I eventually took him into trans when there's not supposed to be anybody in there. And and he would come and go, and then he would still be using drugs, and I was clean with my daughter, and I was just making very poor choices. And eventually, in January of I don't know what year, I relapsed, and it was a bad relapse, and so they took Villarreal again, and Michael came and she evicted me.
We should point out, for those of you who don't know, Michael is in charge of transitional housing at Odyssey House.
Yeah.
And she cares deeply about
She
everybody who
does.
stays there.
Yeah, and because I was a threat to other people there because of my addiction, she couldn't have me there. And DCFS this time, they didn't want to give me reunification because they had tried so hard with me. And
You have been a tough case for her.
I have been a tough case.
Yeah.
And so then I fell off again and went spiraling out again. And I was with her baby, my baby's father. And eventually I got into some trouble, and Odyssey House was the option. And I went into the downtown house, and it was hard. It was hard. Like, I've never really experienced, like, the adolescence is okay, you know what I mean? It's structured and all that.
Yeah.
But being an adult and being in treatment, it was just like a little bit of a different thing for me.
It's highly structured,
Yeah.
very difficult. Nicole, you went through
Downtown.
downtown, so you know of which she is talking.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is.
What was, and this was your first one, though, right?
Yeah.
What was your impression when you first got there?
I call it the Home Alone house because when you walk in, there's stairs.
Yeah.
You know, the part in Home Alone where the cousins are coming and going, and the police officer who's not the police officer standing there, and they're all running. That was what I walked into the downtown house, and it was like people are coming and going and doing. In the
Always
house.
running around.
I was just like, oh my goodness. And I don't do well with, I have social anxiety. Like, I don't do well with a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in that house. So it was overwhelming, but within like a month or two, I like loved the chaos. And
Yeah.
when I left there, I missed it because it's organized.
I was going to describe it as organized chaos
Yeah.
because they do know what they're doing. It
Yeah.
just doesn't seem like they know what they're doing when you first walk in there.
Yeah, because when you get to a certain level in the house, you have like a job in the house. And so people are actually going to do things and get stuff done. But just coming into it, not knowing anything from the hospital, I was like, my heavens.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, did you succeed? this time?
I did. I succeeded all the way until Voyager, and I voyaged out.
So Voyager's the level where you are the lowest level of care when you leave the house.
Yeah.
So
But this time I didn't go into Transitional Odyssey. I went into the Haven. And as soon as I got out, I started talking to my baby's father again. And it's just like, because he was filling that void for me. He was doing something to fill that low self-worth, that body image, that all my problems, you know, because I thought that he would care about me unconditionally.
And I think sometimes, though, like, even if it's a bad situation, it's familiar. And
Right.
familiar is so much easier than the unfamiliar.
And I kept that a secret until he got caught in my apartment. And he was not supposed to be staying over there at the Haven. And I just went through the same cycle again with him. And I eventually just left the Haven and started using with him again. And getting into trouble again. And so I never graduated that time. Eventually I got in trouble and went back to jail. And they sent me back to Odyssey House.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
It's like,
Which house did you go to that time?
This is Mill Creek.
Okay.
Okay, I went to Mill Creek, and it was it was a little bit different at Mill Creek, and I wanted to better my life. I met a lot of great people at Mill Creek. Some people that I had been in the house with first had started working there and graduated, and like Courtney Beckstead, Michael Cox, Anita Segura, and so I knew people. And they welcomed me back, and they were still doing good, and they wanted to see me do good, and that felt good for me. It was like a total switch up from being in the street where nobody wants to see any, like, they don't know how to support somebody in a healthy way. So for me, being back with all my old peers and seeing how great they're doing, it made me feel at home, actually. And so I went through Mill Creek, and I worked a lot on my self-worth, and I started working out every day and doing things for me. And
yay. It's about time after all this.
yeah, and I eventually got to be able to go to Voyager, but I went to the point where I was going to voyage out, and they're like, no, because I was still inappropriately joking. They didn't find it best for me to voyage. They wanted me to go making it all the way up to being able, I've already written my voyage proposal, everything. And they're like, Christina, we need to do what's right for you. We have this in mind. We're going to send you to Sugar House outpatient. And I was really, really disappointed. I didn't want to go to outpatient and do all these groups every week. I wanted to go to Voyager and with all my peers that I had gone through the house with. And they kind of separated me from my peers and put me in outpatient, but I did it. And it was hard. It was hard going through outpatient and having to do everything over, but they had a plan for me. They had a plan, and I learned a lot in outpatient.
What did you learn that's different than, because to an outsider, it would sound like residential treatment is a lot more difficult than outpatient, because with outpatient, for those of you who don't know, you come in the evenings, and then, what is it, 3 or 4 nights a week initially, and then they start cutting back the nights you have to come.
Right.
But you still have to be drug tested all the time.
Yep,
right?
we had to be drug tested all the time, and so in outpatient, you learn how to put your treatment first. Because you can't just say, oh, I have to work tonight and not come to treatment.
Right.
Oh, no, that's not right. You need to put your treatment first because that's your main priority in life. So because I worked at Hires again, and they were familiar with Odyssey House.
And relapse and everything else.
Everything.
Yes.
They have supported me through everything. And in outpatient, I learned, because there's some assignments in outpatient that you don't do in the house.
Okay.
And it's the wall. Well, first it's the mask assignment. And you have to do 3 to 5 masks that you put on to cover up or when you're in your addiction. And I did 5 masks. And it was happy-go-lucky. I had a victim. I had I think Christina, this was a while ago. I had victim. I had what was it? I had these names for them, but it was more like criminal,
Okay.
a criminal one, and
But it's things you're identifying by
they were.
yourself.
I was identifying them, and to be able to take those masks and present them to other people, so that these people know what to look for when you're in your cycle.
Right.
It would that helps, because then they're gonna be there to support you when they say, you're putting on this mask, Christina. You need to take that mask off and get real with yourself. And even the staff, they're like, now we know what you're going through and what you're hiding behind your mask. And it was really deep issues, like losing my kids, not feeling like I'm a good mom, all this stuff. And I'm still working through that. Still.
It's a lifelong battle, right?
Yeah, it's a lifelong long battle. And then the wall The wall is where you take all of your core issues, your thinking errors, all of the masks that you put on, and you explain to people, this is what's blocking me. This is my wall that I'm putting up so that other people that care, I don't let in. And these are the feelings behind this. And you just totally open yourself up and make yourself vulnerable to your peers, to the staff, to everybody. And at the end of that, you smash your wall and you break it to pieces. And these are assignments. These assignments are important. They help you so much.
It sounds like your treatment team at the house really did something great for you.
They did.
And in all honesty, I think that's one of the reasons people call Odyssey such a difficult program, because making yourself vulnerable to the world is something, I don't care whether you're an addict or it's hard for anyone. And quote, normal people they're not revealing themselves to the world either. And in treatment, you've got to do it more than like a person who's not dealing with addiction.
Yeah. You know? And it's a life-changing thing. This is like learning to be vulnerable in your life. It's like moving out of your comfort zone.
Very much.
And becoming very uncomfortable.
What is the status of your 3 kids?
The 2, Isabella and Gabriela, that I had lost first in 2011, they and the only way that I can speak with them is through DCFS.
So they were adopted by them? Mm-hmm. And then what about your 3rd?
My 3rd, Villarreal, she is with... And during my addiction, after this last time that I went, I mean, not this one, but the one before when I graduated the first time, she was there for me. She would always...
Wow.
She was there. I reached out to her, and she supported me in my recovery. She wanted to see me do good. And then after I relapsed, after graduating, when COVID hit, I sent her a message, and it was very inappropriate. Mm. And she took it really personal. And she told me, don't call, don't write,
right,
don't do anything, because you have crossed my boundary.
And you can't blame her.
I can't.
No.
Because she wants what's best for my daughter.
Sure.
And I haven't tried to reach out to her again since I've been in recovery this time. And I'm working on that.
Okay. That's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
How long have you been clean now?
I'm going to be clean for 3 years on September 29th.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Let me guess, that's the longest you've been clean in your adult life.
Yes, that is the longest I've been clean, and it doesn't feel like a long time. It doesn't feel like a long time because I did use drugs for 20 years.
20?
Yeah.
Wow.
Since I was 14. I'm 37. And so being on and off drugs for that long. But there's always been those times where I've gone to treatment or I've been in jail and stuff like that. And I look back on it and I'm like, oh, I'm grateful that I was in there.
Yeah.
Because I would be really, really bad off if I didn't ever get in trouble.
You talk about being vulnerable and how hard it is. You approached me about doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And you obviously knew that you would have to be vulnerable on the podcast. Why would you do that?
To help others. Because there's a Odyssey house maxim. If you can't keep it unless if you give it away. And even the worst cases have come out of Odyssey. Like, I mean, we're all bad cases, but like people have come through Odyssey and changed their whole life around. And it is amazing what you see happen at Odyssey House.
I agree. Massive turnarounds.
Massive.
Yeah.
What do you think was the factor on your last time going through Odyssey?
Great question.
This one?
Changed, yeah.
We want to find a magic formula, an answer right there.
Maybe you have it.
It's because coming back and then, because like in my addiction even, I would call Michael and she would answer the phone And she'd be like, when you're ready, come back. And it's like, and it's just having the people care that much and knowing that they're always going to be there here at Odyssey House. That is what's keeping me around and staying sober this time. Not going back to old relationships, not and still working on my even though I'm not even though I'm graduated, I have to continue to go to therapy, continue to make goals and treatment goals. And feeling like these people really do care about me, because sometimes you feel like when your family uses drugs and stuff, you don't feel loved, you don't feel cared about, you feel like you're missing something. But you find that here with the connection that you make at Odyssey House, and that's what's changed the treatment community. That's the biggest. That is what I think the treatment community, the TC is what we call it, and that is where I feel like things have changed. Like I've finally accepted it.
Well, and the recovery community is huge.
Yeah.
Especially in Salt Lake County, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have gone through what all of us have gone through and support each other.
Yeah.
And that's important.
It is very important.
And I think it's important there's like people that are in positions that can help,
Right.
and they just do. Like if some people can be in a position to help and they don't. Like we've got like Michael, like you're talking about, and
Yeah.
Courtney, and these people that are doing their day-to-day jobs and then also going the extra mile all the time. And if someone's going to do that for you, it's just amazing.
It is amazing here.
So you're going to stay in the community?
Yes, I'm going to stay in the
Please
community.
do.
I will.
I got to ask one question. What's your relationship with your parents?
Right now, I only talk to them over the phone. I have supported them financially.
You have supported them?
Yeah, when they needed money, I've sent them money,
Wow.
but I don't go see them.
Are they still in addiction?
Yes, they are still in addiction. And I think it's kind of because they're set in their ways and they do struggle a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to do for them. So I just,
Well, you're
I have
smart
to stay
staying
away.
away. So you maintain a relationship, but not to the point that it would damage your sobriety.
right.
Cool.
And that's what you have to do. Like, and then with Jesse, I can't even talk to him because he's in his addiction and people say he'll never change. I don't want to put like an absolute on it, that people will never change, but we can always hope that they will.
Well, I was a functional alcoholic until I was like 60, and I changed. Okay, so
That is cool because like my dad, he's a functional. He still works. He even though he's retired, he still works, but he's still in his addiction.
and I've been clean now for 13 years. So it's possible for anyone. And we've
Right.
and we've had people in the Odyssey program in their 50s and 60s who have been hardcore addicts for decades and
they-
are changing.
Yeah.
So there's always hope, and that's the point of this Odyssey podcast. And it's not, some people have said it sounds like you're sort of exploiting people's traumatic life, which you certainly have had, and many people have had. And it's not a case of exploiting. It's like, as you said, you're giving it away to show that there is hope.
Yeah.
If you can do it, so can someone else,
Yeah.
right?
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable.
Thank you.
Okay. It's good to see you again, Nicole.
You too.
And thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.